Good evening and thanks very much for joining us. I'm Brittany Ramsey. More firefighting help is on the way to northwestern Ontario. A 28-person crew from Alberta is set to join the effort. Ontario Premier Doug Ford is also pledging more support after nearly 30 new fires were reported in the region over the weekend. Corey Nordstrom has details.
A small amount of rain last week was not enough to dampen the growing number of forest fires in the region. 29 new fires were ignited over the weekend, bringing the active total to 138 in the Northwest District.
Since then, with the little amount of rain we have had lightning come through. So we've started to see the last few days, a few more lightning-caused fires emerge on the landscape. So that's why the last few days we've had more fire starts at this time.
On Friday, media reports out of Kenora indicated that members of the Poplar Hill First Nation evacuating in that city were clear to return home. But there's still no update on the status of the 300 community members staying here in Thunder Bay. Scott says the Red Lake 65 fire, which is just over 6 kilometers from the First Nation and sits at roughly 17.6 thousand hectares, still hasn't been brought under control, but crews are working hard to keep it away from critical infrastructure.
Fire behavior has been pretty limited on the eastern and southern sides of the fire, which are, is kind of closest to the community. So that's why, the fire still remains, 6 kilometers northwest of the community, and that it hasn't been that active over recent days because, a while ago it did receive some rain, and then last few days it wasn't as active.
District forest firefighters are getting plenty of help in the ongoing fight. 169 fire personnel from out of province are lending a hand, including 28 firefighters and support staff from Alberta who are now heading to the region. And Premier Doug Ford says the province is willing to do more as well.
Anything they need, they're going to get. I will spare no expense, and we'll make sure that the resources will always continue until we get these fires underway.
The Premier will be in Thunder Bay on Wednesday to visit the M.N.R.F's command center. Doug Ford was recently called out by members of the official opposition who want him to declare a state of emergency because of the fires in the Northwest. Corey Nordstrom, TBT News.
Meanwhile, Environment Canada has issued a special air quality statement for much of the province, stretching from the northwest all the way to the Quebec border. High levels of air pollution are expected in the northwest and central regions. That's due to smoke from active fires here in the northwest and in eastern Manitoba. The weather agency says low visibility can also be expected, particularly in areas closer to the fires. It warns high levels of air pollution are possible in regions including Toronto, Hamilton, and Ottawa as smoke plumes from the fires may move over southern Ontario. Well, it appears we're going to have to wait a few more days for any further information on a body discovered near Lakehead University on Saturday night. The body was found by a passerby around 9:30 p.m. and led to the closure of Balmoral Street near the Beverly Street entrance to the university until Sunday afternoon. Police have released no other information on the death, including if it is suspicious or not. A request for more information today was responded to with word that a postmortem is pending. Until it's complete, no further information will be released. Police are hoping to provide an update by Wednesday. Meanwhile, police have taken a man into custody after finding he had illegally entered Canada by walking across the border from Minnesota. Officers responded to a complaint of an unwanted male at a Thunder Center business last night. A check revealed there was no record of him entering the country, but when police attempted to escort the man into the Balmoral station, he became combative and struck 2 officers. The 23-year-old is now charged with assaulting police, uttering threats, and mischief. Canada Border Services is also investigating. All right, on to COVID-19 now. The Thunder Bay District Health Unit is reporting 3 new cases today, all related to travel outside northwestern Ontario. The 3 cases are in the Thunder Bay area. The total case count is now at 3,344, and just 4 are considered active. Meanwhile, the Northwestern Health Unit has no new cases today, and just 2 are active in that district. There are currently no COVID-19 patients being treated at the regional hospital. And as vaccination rates in Ontario continue to stall, there is renewed pressure on the Ford government to take steps to improve the numbers, especially among healthcare workers. But it's a move the Premier is refusing to take. Colin DeMello reports.
The fourth wave of COVID-19 could be on the horizon, and the Ford government says the vaccine is this province's ticket out of the pandemic.
I'm up here literally preaching, begging, pleading every single day since the beginning of this pandemic.
But Ontario's vaccination rates have hit a speed bump over the past few weeks, prompting calls to coax more Ontarians to get their first dose. Recently, the University Health Network issued a new policy requiring unvaccinated healthcare workers to get a negative COVID test before starting their shift. Today, the Premier's political critics say it should be mandatory for frontline workers to get a vaccine.
It's just that they are working in critically important areas where there are lots of vulnerabilities. And again, we don't want a fourth wave that's bad, and we don't want school closures, and we don't want those who are getting medical help to be in any way more vulnerable than they need to be.
But the Premier, once again, is shooting down the idea.
We just encourage them to get a vaccination. I just don't believe in forcing anyone to get a vaccination that doesn't want it.
At the same time, the government is being pressed to present a return-to-school plan. The Minister of Education promised to deliver the plan in July. With 5 days left in the month, the Premier says...
And it's going to be out very, very shortly.
Critics argue parents need peace of mind about what school is going to look like.
Nobody wants a hybrid model. Everyone I've talked to is saying, hey, we want to make sure we can be back in class and in class safely. And the fact that the Premier hasn't delivered a plan to do that this late in the game is a lack of leadership.
The Premier is insisting, however, that schools will be open for students.
Thunder Bay City Councillors are looking at a long night ahead as they work their way through a jam-packed agenda. Two of the most prominent items include an organizational redesign of Superior North EMS and a motion from Northwood's Shelby Chung calling for a local ban on the controversial practice of conversion therapy. That's the practice of trying to change someone's sexual orientation or gender identity to conform with societal norms. Officials with Rainbow Collective of Thunder Bay will be on hand to support Chung's motion. She wants city staff to explore ways to outlaw conversion therapy. Chung would like to go as far as revoking local business licenses for organizations found to engage in the practice. Meanwhile, Superior North EMS officials are recommending an organizational redesign to help deal with the growing number of service calls it responds to in Thunder Bay. The plan includes more staff and increased ambulance hours. 4 years after it was awarded $30 million by the federal government, the Lac Seul First Nation has successfully appealed for a larger amount. The case was heard by the Supreme Court last year, and the decision was rendered earlier this month. The money is for flood damage dating back to 1934, and as Adam Riley reports, the decision has the Lac Seul First Nation believing that reconciliation in Canada is possible.
We'd like to get more because a lot of devastation occurred. A way of life was destroyed, our livelihood.
In an 8-1 decision, the Supreme Court of Canada has approved an appeal by the Lac Seul First Nation of a case the community won and was awarded $30 million for in 2017. The case stemmed from the construction and activation of a hydroelectric dam in Ear Falls nearly 100 years ago, which flooded 11,000 acres of land, destroying homes, leaving hundreds homeless, decimating the wild rice crop to a point where it is never recovered, and to add insult to injury, the water has begun eroding away at culturally sensitive sites.
Erosion still occurs on our lakes and rivers, and our burial sites are disturbed still with erosion. We sometimes find skeletons and skulls on shores. So we need to fix that.
The argument from the First Nation was that the $30 million awarded was not sufficient compensation for what was and what could have been. Kiiwetinoong MPP Saul Mamakwa agrees and is happy with the decision.
You know, when you lose your history, when you lose your way of life, when you lose, the identity where you come from the lands, what is that worth? And I think it's worth more than $30 million.
However, Bull is optimistic a return to the courtrooms will not be required, as the original judgment ruled in favor of Lac Seul, and the only disagreement came from the dollar figure awarded. He believes a deal can be struck at the negotiation table. He notes specifically that this could be a watershed moment for reconciliation in Canada, adding the case is precedent-setting.
It kind of takes away some of the ambiguity of some of these really tough cases, flooding cases that are still at the courts. True reconciliation can happen, but it takes a long time sometimes. But And I think if there is a good judgment after the trial is done and fair compensation is paid, then I will believe that reconciliation has happened and that Canada is listening to First Nations.
No date has been set for when officials and negotiators will meet again. Adam Riley, TBT News.
The second straight year, Ontario Power Generation has partnered with the Regional Food Distribution Association to provide much-needed food relief to First Nations communities in the region. This year's donation of $200,000 will assist in the purchase of needed perishable and non-perishable food supplies, while also allowing the RFDA to invest in a pair of electric insulated refrigerated containers. It's an addition that Executive Director Volker Krom says will provide the RFDA with the ability to help more of those in need.
For us, it was always a manage of storage. We didn't have the storage space, we didn't have the systems to move the food, and particularly frozen and fresh, we didn't have the refrigeration. So we resorted to diesel generator, diesel reefers. We also rented storage space, which it cost us dearly. And so we're looking at being more fiscally responsible.
And distribution of the food supplies to the 20 communities should begin by the middle of August. Meanwhile, another cherished public facility has reopened its doors as part of Ontario's Step 3. Officials with the Thunder Bay Museum say they're excited to welcome visitors back to the facility following its extended shutdown. Patrons are now able to visit galleries on all 3 floors, which feature a wide variety of exhibits displaying the rich heritage of Thunder Bay and its surrounding area. Executive Director Scott Bradley says the displays are headlined right now by 3 temporary exhibits.
There's just nothing better than the power of place when you're trying to tell important historical stories, to be close to artifacts, to be actually able to go through the archives, and to be able to see these things in person. It's just not the same as digital, and so this is a really great day to be able to do those things. We actually have 3 temporary exhibits on display starting today. One is the Science of Guinness Book World Records, which is on display in our 2nd floor gallery, and that comes to us from Science North. We also have a traveling exhibit on the fiber arts, so it's the 2021 Grand National Fiber Arts Exhibition. We also have a local quilt exhibit by our local Thunder Bay Quilters Guild. We're given 3 pieces of fabric, and then they were able to add in some of their own. We're going to see the creativity of how folks could, do something different with those 3 pieces of fabric.
Spots are still available over the next 3 weeks for anyone interested in signing up for summer day camps, while the museum also looks forward to welcoming back its walking tour program as well as its volunteer program.
Well, Fiona, we're just rolling out of that hot and muggy weekend in Thunder Bay, and Monday, just another chapter in that book.
Yes.